Mick, thank you for joining us on this very historic week. And I'm asking you what I'm asking everybody tonight. What did you make of Joe Biden's trip to Israel? A significant trip with high risk. He got through it, but is it going to achieve anything for peace and, more importantly, even Israeli security?
Yeah, James, look, it's a good trip. I've set up a half a dozen of these trips for the President of the United States, and it was a good trip. It's a nice, gutsy trip. It's a good show of the flag. It's in the middle of an active war zone, et cetera. He looks presidential. There's no question about it. It sends a really good message, both to our friends and to our enemies. Does it change the outcomes any? Probably not. And by the way, that means outcomes in Israel and outcomes here back home domestically for Joe Biden. The president, we fully expect to have him ask for $100 billion worth of support. That's not just for Israel. That's for Israel and for the Ukraine and for a bunch of domestic things. So we have to wait to see if the trip translates into more money back home from Congress. On the political front, he's trying to look like a president. He's trying to look capable. He's trying to sort of beat down those hushed whispers about his mental capacity and so forth. It's very rare, and you and I have talked about this on this show many, many times. It's very rare that foreign policy moves the needle at all in domestic American elections. Joe Biden is going to try and make this into an issue that he can turn into political gold, but it's hard to do that in this country. He's had some really bad polling numbers, mostly on the economy. In fact, almost entirely in the economy. He's still underwater on that, and I don't think going to Israel changes that even just a little bit.
Now, what are the politics here of this? You mentioned before getting $200 billion in funding through. My sense is that the Republicans are very much pro-Israel as opposed to the Hamas caucus you saw there on Capitol Hill with the Democrats and Rashida Tlaib. But, you know, there's a lot more diffidence when it comes to Ukraine. Is tying those two things politically a smart move for the White House, or would they be better off disaggregating the two?
You know, that's one of the gambles that you take. Here's their calculation, and you see this one coming a mile off. It's the same calculation we would make if we're in the same situation as Republicans, is that he knows he can get the votes for Israel. He's not sure he can get the votes for Ukraine, so he puts them all together. In fact, there's talk about throwing in some border security money as well to try and maybe buy some Republican votes. He knows the Republican Party is split on funding for Ukraine. There's probably a majority that would still support it, but it's going to be close. So it's one of those things you do in Washington, D.C. You take an idea that's popular, you marry it to an idea that might be less popular, and you hope that the people who don't like the one will hold their nose and vote for a package. That's what he's banking on. Keep in mind, though, if you get too carried away with that and start to add all sorts of Christmas tree items, sort of everything that you want at one time, that does run the risk of taking a bill down, and then you don't get anything, including the stuff that you might have gotten if you'd asked for it by itself.
And Mick, where is Donald Trump in all of this? I mean, I would think that one of the advantages for Biden is that, you know, not only is he being seen to be presidential, but of course, all of this tragedy and chaos around the world is taking Donald Trump off the stage. I haven't seen any significant rallies or speeches from him, certainly dripping out into social media. Does all of this put up the brakes on his campaign, which until the Hamas invasion of Israel seemed to have a fair bit of momentum?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, it was not a very good week in court for the former president. His former lawyer pled guilty, and as expected, Sidney Powell is expected to testify against him in the upcoming trial in Georgia. That's not good news. He got slapped with a gag order. That's probably not good news. Again, it's hard to say with Donald Trump because everything that I think would be bad news for an ordinary human being turns out to be good news for him politically. But yes, he has been out of the news this week because of what's happening in Israel. That said, James, he has had to walk something back, and Donald Trump doesn't like walking stuff back. I've only seen him do it 2 or 3 times in the years that I've known him. He changed his position. He came out and was critical of Benjamin Netanyahu and sort of said some nice things about Hamas. That did not go over well, even with the MAGA Republican base. And he has then spent the last couple of days trying to sort of backpedal and support Israel, or at least be more clear in his support for Israel. So again, when I say it's been a bad week for Donald Trump, that means maybe he lost 1 or 2 points, not 10 or 15. But my guess is he was happy to be out of the news a little bit this week because it would not have been a good week for him in any event.